Check. Hello, football family. Welcome into Huddle It Up Films, Week 9. Man, halfway through this game, the Ravens will be halfway through their regular season, 17-game season. They sit at 5-3. The 5-3 Denver Broncos come to M&T Bank Stadium after the Ravens lost at Cleveland. It was their third road game in 4 weeks. Alec, I wasn't feeling great about the game, and I felt like I should have felt great. People were telling me I was being too down, and then we just shot ourselves in the foot with the dropped interceptions, and offense struggled a little bit. Just an awful loss at Cleveland. There's no other way to put it. I heard you on your show say unacceptable. The Ravens have to bounce back, put that in the rearview mirror. Joining me tonight, Alec Polianis, One Winning Pod, the Pat McCary of the community here. Can play left tackle, right tackle. He can play all across the line. Filling in for my buddy Yuri. Got to take a shot at Yuri first of all. Prayers up to you, buddy. Yuri is doing well. He is coaching football. So mercy on those poor young men that Yuri is coaching, Alec. What are your thoughts on Yuri coaching?
I didn't know he was old enough to be a coach. Isn't the guy like 13?
Well, that's what I'm going to get on. That's what I'm going to get on him about next week. Like, why aren't you playing? Bro, you're young. You're in your early 20s. Why are you not playing? Why are you coaching? So maybe that says something about his athleticism and his, for a guy that's all on the RAS scores and the, the testing numbers. Maybe Yuri's not a good tester.
Yeah, he's into what he's not, right? So he looks at all those guys running around underwear Olympics. He's like, I can't do that.
He can't do that. Yeah. From parts unknown, let's just say Yuri is surrounded by fit young men. So that's about as much as I'm going to give away his business. But yeah, he's out coaching. Thank you so much for joining me last minute on this. I really appreciate you, bud. You know how much I love you. So we have a lot to get to in this matchup, Alec. A lot of moving parts in both the offense and the defense for the Ravens and for the Broncos. But the big news of the week so far, Deontay Johnson, former Steeler, coming to the Ravens from the Carolina Panthers for basically nothing. $625,000 is all he's going to be owed for the rest of this year. The Pittsburgh Steelers are still paying him, I believe, over $5 million in dead cap hit. So the Steelers are helping pay for our wide receiver. Thoughts on this move? I know you probably have some on a pod coming out soon.
Yeah, we recorded right before hopping on to do this show, but I kind of mentioned a week or two ago how I would love to acquire a wide receiver in the trade deadline. A piece just like Deontay Johnson's perfect because I really like what Zay and Bateman are doing, but if one of them got hurt, immediately you'd be a little bit more concerned about the group. There are good role players behind them, but they're not the level of snaps that those two are getting. It'd be a huge hit to the offense. Bring in a guy like Deontay Johnson who can play both outside and in the slot. I think he brings you good versatility, good separator, and kind of what I was looking for. So I'm very keen on the move. I would argue that this move is almost a surplus. Our fifth is going to be a late fifth. Their fifth is going to be an early fifth, or their sixth is going to be an early sixth. And if he signs a contract elsewhere for over $5 million, you get another $6 in a compensatory pick. So it's basically surplus value. So I love the move. It's a great move. And the only thing that would make me upset is if Bateman starts losing snaps to him at a considerable rate.
Okay, well, hey, that's going to be the big talking point. And, if you look at the resumes of the players, there's no doubt Deontay Johnson has a fuller resume, a better resume. People pick on Deontay Johnson for the drops, but, Bateman has had his fair share of drops too, something that Deontay Johnson has cleaned up recently. But, I mean, there's people that would say, hey, he's clearly better than Bateman. And, I can't argue with them based on the production. I haven't watched Deontay Johnson much this year. I was spending a lot of time on the Broncos this week. I'm going to go back and watch Deontay Johnson, but he's a good receiver. And I did you have something to respond to on that?
I watched all of his targets, not the dunk on you, but I did watch all his targets from this year. And some of them are targets. Some of those air balls were pretty bad. So when you see his yard per target number, remember that not all targets are created equal. So yeah, he a lot of short stuff. One thing that I saw actually that I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, but there was a couple times that defenses knew that he was going to do like a short slant and they jumped the route. So I don't know if that's a tell on his part or a tell on the offense in general. But yeah, just a lot of short slants, a lot of like outs, dig routes. I mean, just things you would expect out of a possession receiver, out of a guy who gets good at separating. One thing that I thought he had a good knack for was find the soft spots in zones when going across the middle. He was good at catching the ball in traffic, and had some decent yak, all things considered. So, not the fastest guy, but shifty and had good vision. So I like I said, I like the pickup, and I think he will fit in nicely. The only thing I don't know is like his ability to improvise on the backyard plays. When the pocket breaks down for Lamar and they're improvising. So we'll see about that part.
Yeah, and this is, John jumping in right away. Thanks, John. Hate to bring up your comment right after you type it, but I was just about to say this. Bryce Young made some horrible throws. Bryce Young also very hesitant, to the point where he got benched. So very hesitant. Deontay Johnson, I found interesting in some comments from Inside Reporter from CBS Sports. His last name's Jones. I wouldn't say Jason Jones, but he's the guy that asked Lamar that horrible question about, I heard you didn't work out much. He basically said that communication was the word that he got from the Panthers as to why it wasn't working out and why they were giving him away. Basically said the whole league knew that Deontay Johnson was going to be traded for basically nothing. That Johnson, he inferred that Deontay Johnson had a problem with Bryce Young, had a problem with his role on the team. That's the one downside that I could see, is that the Ravens have this machine working on offense. And Deontay Johnson, we've seen some low effort plays at Pittsburgh, him just standing there while the ball's on the ground. He doesn't come across as like the scrappy, hardworking team players that the Harbaughs love to have.
Blocking. Yeah, I know.
Doesn't like blocking. So will there be some chemistry issues? I'm not sure. But one thing I'm really excited about from Deontay Johnson is his ability to separate. Like you said, shifty. This number stuck out to me versus the Browns. Lamar Jackson was, effective versus zone, as it says right there. You see his numbers, but he struggled against the Browns' man-heavy defense, took 3 sacks, completed about 50%. And, the receivers on this team have separated really well. You look at Bateman's separation numbers, Zay's separation numbers. It's been, in the fours, most of the season. Just 2.2 yards of separation against that talented Browns secondary that we talked so much about last week, Alec. I mean, geez, they have Greg Newsome in their slot. He would be a starting outside corner for most teams in this league. You have Denzel Ward. You have Martin Emerson. So when the Ravens faced great cornerbacks last week, the receivers had a harder time separating. And the Browns leaned on that in their man defense, stacked the box, tried to stack Henry, blitzed Lamar Jackson. And, it didn't stop the Ravens, but it definitely slowed them down. Deontay Johnson, it's really hard to play man against him. And if you get him, Bateman, and Zay Flowers all out on the field, good luck having 3 corners that can stick with those guys man to man.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that entirely. I would be curious to see how fast he ramps up going against this Broncos team that is a really good defense. For no other reason than like we could use him. This, like we said, this is a tough defense, and I'm curious to see how quickly he ramps up in his role and learns the offense.
So what would you guess this week? He plays 10 to 15 snaps. Doesn't play at all. What are your thoughts?
I think he definitely plays. 15 to 20 snaps is what I was going to say, which is about in line for how many snaps Aguilar is getting, a little bit less. So, yeah.
So I also heard Chris Sims after we made this move. I believe it was Chris Sims. No, I think it was Dan Orlovsky actually on ESPN, who expressed concern that this is going to take away not from Bateman, but from Likely. It's going to take away from our 2 tight end package that we've relied so much on. It's the best. I mean, you look at our numbers on offense. Out of 11 personnel, it's one of the best. Out of 12 personnel, you're using 2 tight ends. It's one of the best. Out of play action, it's one of the best. So our offense is strong everywhere. But he was saying not having those 2 tight ends on the field to disguise whether you're going to run or whether you're going to pass out of it, and having Deontay Johnson on the field instead could actually hurt the chemistry of this offense. I think there's a point there, but it's not something that I'm stressed about. I look at it more of a luxury of riches. What's the word? Overflowing.
Riches. Yeah.
Yes, more than I do that. it's going to squeeze somebody out of this offense like Likely or Bateman. I think they got their places in this offense.
I'd agree with that. I think you're not going to use 11 personnel more just because you got Deontay Johnson at this point. I think we'll use it just as much, which is a good amount.
Very fair, very fair. So, lastly on this topic, the chemistry issues among the team. It's really good chemistry on offense. Uh, Derrick Henry's role. Did you have any problem with him? The number of carries that he got last game, that was a big talking point. I do think they could have, my opinion, I do think they could have ran the ball more, stuck with it, and worn that defense down. But the Browns did make things tough on the Ravens, so it's not for me. It wasn't like a big screaming point or a knock on Todd Monken. I think that he's done a really good job overall.
Yeah, I'm not too upset about that. If anything, I would give him less carries, like that direct snap one. I don't think though. I don't think it was a big deal, frankly. I think people got used to us winning 5 games in a row and what that looks like, and the amount of rushing that you do at the end of the game, and him tearing off these big runs to seal the deal and get you that extra, touchdown or whatever, that extra score to give you a nicer lead. I don't think it's really indicative of the game script that we were in. And like you said, they were stacking the box like crazy, right? They were daring us to run. And when you got the ability to pass as well as we are, the drops
They were
were just out
daring.
of
They were
control.
daring us to throw. They were daring.
Yeah,
us
and
to
the
throw.
amount of drops were out of control. Like we've never seen that many drops this season. I remember there was a game a couple of years, against the Steelers. Actually, the Steelers game, same darn weekend as that Orioles loss. Right? They dropped the ball like 11 times. I mean, that's the last time we saw a drop brigade quite like what we saw this weekend. So, I think it's one of those things where they dared us, we accepted the dare, and then the sun and snake hands got the best of us.
I can't stand that game. I can't stand that game. Like I was, it's an, I hear you on the unacceptable loss, and I was kind of, I don't know. I don't even know what word or adjective to use, but I feel like this loss brought a lot of our issues to light, to the forefront, because winning cures, winning covers the stink one stuff. And I feel like by losing this game to a team, giving up 29 points to a team that hadn't scored more than 18 all season, only scored 18 once, they scored 29 against us. I think that kind of performance brings a lot of the team's weaknesses to light and brings more urgency to people like Zach Orr, to the Marcus Williams situation, whatever else is going on that defense that we don't know about. So I do think that there's a silver lining in this awful, embarrassing loss at Cleveland.
Denard Melton put it really well. You don't need to watch all the other games. Just watch the Cleveland game. Everything's there. Everything that we've been worried about and complaining about on the defensive side of the ball is on full display in that one game.
Yeah, it's very true. And, I'm looking down at the bottom. I'm going to bring up Koku. Thanks for joining the chat, buddy. See you in here. The Raiders game was a wake-up call for the offense, and the defense needed a wake-up call because the Bucs game wasn't enough of a wake-up call, apparently. Yeah, that Bucs offense is pretty good. You could say, hey, man, we were facing Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, this and that. But, yeah, the Raiders game was a wake-up call for the offense. And I think that this Browns game was, you can't look at it any other way as a wake-up call. It's just an ugly loss. Now, down at the bottom, I wanted to mention this. You look at the Denver Broncos; they are hot. They started 0-2. They won 5 of 6. They sit there at 5-3. I'm looking at their wins and I'm looking at their losses. And Alec, this is giving me the vibe of y'all really ain't beat anybody. But also, I can't feel really great about that after what happened last week. So it's like, well, you guys just lost to the Browns. But I'm looking at, seriously, Seattle, Pittsburgh, the LA Chargers are their losses. Those are all good teams to very good teams. And then you look at the teams they beat. Tampa Bay would probably be the cream of the crop there. They won at Tampa Bay. So not exactly a murderer's row of a schedule for the Denver Broncos, and they've lost to the best teams they've played.
Agreed. The only thing that kind of concerns me about their team is they're led by a rookie quarterback who seems to be putting things together slowly. But what I meant, like in a good way, like he's starting to put things together piece by piece each week, getting a little bit better. And I think Nick's had his best game of the season last week. So you're getting a guy who's improving steadily, and we'll talk about it a ton. But the defense is very threatening. Leads the league in pressures and second and sacks. So definitely. You can't underestimate this team. It was a close game last time they were at Baltimore, and yeah, we gotta get a win here. It's so critical. We're at the top of the mountain, so to speak, when it comes to the schedule. The 9th is the very top, and then we'll start going back down the mountain before we start the playoffs. And yeah, it needs to happen. We need to be 6-3 because 5-4 sounds a whole lot worse.
Oh man, such a huge difference between 6-3 and 5-4, and it's only one game.
I know.
It feels like that at different points. Like if you could be 3-2 and 4-1, what a huge difference. But yeah, this is definitely one of them. 5-4 or 6-3 coming up. So something I wanted to bring up. Excuse me for one moment here. Okay, the injury report. It's the elephant in the room as of today. I'm going to take the thing off the bottom there. Alec, this defensive line, bro. So Brent Urban comes in, plays one snap, and gets concussed. Travis Jones hasn't looked right in 2 weeks. And last week, I was looking at the TV, thinking he can't play. He should not be on the field. Like Travis Jones cannot put full weight on his, I think it's his right ankle. And he's playing through that. And I'm thinking, he is way too important to this team long term to have him out there and aggravate that thing and then have that just linger. Broderick Washington finally back at practice, played last week. He's limited, so his knee is still banged up. Michael Pierce put on IR. He will return this season, according to Harbaugh. It's not a season ender. So if you look at the 5 defensive tackles we started the year with here, 3 of them are going to be out. So you won't have Urban. You might not have Urban, excuse me. You won't have Pierce. And then you got and who knows what's going on with Broderick Washington. You expect him to play. It's just a bad situation on the D line. Matabike might play 80% of the snaps this week, and then you have to worry about wearing him down. The Ravens do have Chris Wormley on the practice squad. I would expect him to be elevated, especially if Urban can't play. And Josh Tupou is how I'm saying it. He was in here for the preseason training camp. Didn't play great, according, from what I saw, but he's back. So overall, this is a very thin defensive line and not a very talented defensive line.
Yeah, what do you know? There's a multiple storyline here. So we start off the season, we're only activating 4 of these guys. I'm losing my mind. I think it's irresponsible. And then in a game that they finally have all 5 activated, Urban gets hurt the first play. Pierce shortly thereafter. Jones is already hurt from the week prior and clearly not effective. Washington had an injury that he was nursing. He just got back from as well. So yeah, like you said, man, it's a huge vulnerability. Tupu, whatever we're gonna say, he's gonna be called up almost for sure. I would also think Wormley's gonna be brought up. I said on our show that will be releasing shortly after we finish doing this show of the way that Harbaugh answered the question today about the defensive line, where he's like, "I like our guys," and it was kind of quick, cut off the question. I think there's a trade already brewing because I don't know. You can't like these guys. You didn't even have them on the team a couple weeks ago. So I will say the reason I said this kind of a long story is, shoot, it was 2 seasons ago. We're like, what are we going to do about this defensive line? They need to get overhaul. We have some old guys in here. We have 2 guys that we're not sure if we're going to get on contracts in Washington and Matabike. Turns out we get them both under contract. The old guys start producing well and have this fountain of youth moment, and then we don't bring anyone else in. There was zero competition in camp, no draft picks, no one of high priority free agent or anything. The veterans or whatever. So yeah, it's just one of those things where we really had no reinforcements. There was never even a competition for a roster spot or anything behind them. It leaves us kind of in a tough spot. So it's not good. And I think it's honestly one of the biggest reasons this defense is failing. We're not getting a pass rush with 4, and it influences the defensive packages you want to play.
Yeah, and when guys like Pierce and Urban are missing, and even Travis Jones, people immediately think of the run defense, and that's true, but they're doubling the heck out of Matabike. And, if you're a $20 million man, we saw with Dexter Lawrence on Monday night, he's beating double teams. He's getting home. He's one of the best defensive tackles in the league. Matabike is not to that point yet. You single him up one-on-one, Alec, and I have plenty of, like, it'll be on the end of his end of the season highlights. Matabike one-on-one is basically dropping people into the quarterback's lap, bull rushing him, but he's getting doubled a lot. Travis Jones was the other guy who could really move the pocket and put pressure on. Without the pocket being pushed, it exposes the edge rushers who are not sack artists. Kyle Van Noy with the Renaissance, but he's not known as a sack guy. Oway's having a good season, but he's not a 15 sack guy. You don't have a superstar out there. It's more of a team rush. So yeah, the front four on this, if we can't get pressure with the problems in communication that we're having on the back end, it's just a huge problem.
It is. Do you want to talk about the bright side of this injury report?
Yeah, go ahead, because we got looks like some DBs back.
I was going to talk about that, dude. Keem Mitchell, I think, is the big one. He is a full participant for the first time. He was limited all last week. And I'm hoping that our national nightmare with Collier is over. And we can have Keem Mitchell elevated. Maybe he can even return some kicks. Who knows? But definitely have him be a third running back and maybe actually get some snaps. I'm excited for him. And we didn't talk about Deontay Johnson might return some kicks as well. So looking forward to that improvement. But yeah, we can go talk about the corners. That's important.
Yeah, hey, my thought on Keaton Mitchell, I want them to be, he's out there with a heavy brace on his knee. I want them to be careful with him. I think that if anything, when he comes back, maybe they should put Rasheen Ali on IR as well. Like, I don't know what's happening, but he hasn't been healthy all year. It's not really helping us with that roster spot right there. So that's something else I would be looking at. But yeah, Keaton Mitchell with full practice is a pretty great sign. Yeah. At corner, Marlon being limited, I would expect that he would be ready to play if you're limited on a Wednesday, unless he took a step back and doesn't feel well and doesn't practice tomorrow. Like, Marlon finishes out this week, Alec, it's a good sign that he's going to play. And Nate Wiggins, our ball kind of suggested that he would have played last week if not for the illness. So Nate Wiggins back, Marlon Humphrey potentially back. Arthur Millette did not practice today, so that's a knock on the secondary. Not that we needed any more bad news on defense, but yeah, it will be obviously a huge help. Marlon's had a great year. Nate Wiggins can cover these Broncos receivers.
Yeah, Wiggins definitely. I feel good about him practicing, seeing that he was a full participant on Thursday last week, limited on Friday. That's when he came down with the illness. And then if you look at where is Humphrey? Yeah, so he did not practice the whole way. I would say I'm not 100% sure about Humphrey being available this week, but I do feel decent about him being available. I'd probably put it at like 60-40. So that is huge news. I think that's a big reason why the team struggled last week as well. You feel a little bit more confident doing those blitzes, maybe even blitzing more often when you've got your better cover corners. JAD is just not, a starting caliber player. Honestly, I don't think he's a player. Like, I guess like you need backups, and if he's the best you got, like, okay. But he is definitely on the bubble as far as I'm concerned with the roster. I don't think he's like that great.
Now, see, I actually thought JAD played pretty well last week. He was quiet, which is what you want from a backup corner. I don't think his coverage is where his coverage was terrible. Then again, he wasn't playing exactly murderer's row of receivers. wide receivers out there. But I thought JAD filled in admirably. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a drop off when you compare it to Humphrey, and especially Wiggins' ceiling, if he can ever stop holding and grabbing unnecessarily. That man, and he catches his interceptions, that man's going to be really good. Let's jump into the matchup, Alec. Let's start on the Ravens offense. This is extremely interesting. Now, the Ravens offense, of course, is rolling. There's not a lot of question marks here anymore. It looks like that offensive line has settled in. Maybe we get a surprise. Ben Cleveland gets a start. Voorhees gets another chance. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, the skill players are what they are. What's fascinating in this matchup to me, guys, I only got to study one game of the Denver Broncos defense. And I was telling Alec before the show, they were staying in the good old-fashioned 3-4, even against some spread looks, against some 11 looks. Like, the Panthers would trot out 3 wide receivers, and instead of going nickel, These guys stayed in a base defense with their big nose tackle, who's not on the screen right now, DJ Jones, an established player. So this team will go big, and it's really, really interesting to see how they play. It's kind of like, it's the old amoeba defense to me, Alec, where you don't know where these guys are going to be playing. Justin Strad was their inside linebacker. He's also an edge guy, a la Malik Harrison type. The only thing for certain is that Patrick Surtain will be locking down whoever he faces. Alec, there's so much to go on here, buddy. Start us off with one particular piece that you're looking at, or an overall view. You take it away, sir.
Well, one thing is with certain, like, does he follow or does he stay on one side? I think he's a one side guy, right?
No, he was following.
Oh
I
wow.
saw,
Okay.
yeah, I saw him on the left and the right. So they're not afraid to switch both him and Riley Moss, who is, their other like 100% guy, so 100% of snaps there. Riley Moss. Yeah, man, yeah, it's a really good, great corner in Patrick Surtain.
Yeah, truly is. The big thing I wanted to talk about, like we mentioned earlier, is where our defensive line is lackluster right now and struggling and not getting sacks or what have you. They're number one in pressures, number two in sacks. Leading the way for sacks is Benito, who's not on your.
Yeah, he's their sub rusher.
Yeah, he's not in there, but on your image. But guys like Cooper, who are there on all the plays, or Zach Allen, 5.5 and 4 sacks respectively. Stranad is a tweener who plays inside and outside. He has 3 sacks. I think the way that they're able to mix personnel and use the same guys but play them in different spots is the big thing to watch out for, and how our offense is able to respond to that.
Yeah, I was saying before the show to Alec, I feel less prepared than normal. I, always ultra prepared, and by Sunday's game, I will be all caught up on this Denver defense. But the number of players that they played, the different spots, like they had McMillan, their nickel corner, they had him playing some safety. It was just, and playing a 3-4. So they would bring in their nose tackle, take out their strong safety. It was straight, and put their nickel at strong safety. Jonathan Cooper over there on the strong side would drop into coverage a lot. Patrick Surtain was all over the field. So, Alec, this brings me to this point while we're talking about overall. I would feel really nervous against this defense, and you see their ranks coming up down at the bottom. It's a great defense. I would feel more nervous if this was a Greg Roman style offense, or any kind of offense in which the quarterback did not have control at the line. I think that our trump card in this game is what has been our trump card all season, is that Lamar can come. He can see what defense they're in. He can see where guys are lined up, how he thinks they're attacking this play, and still be able to find a weakness and still be able to give this defense a hard time, put up better numbers than anybody else has against this defense, because, number one, Lamar Jackson is just so damn talented. Number two, the skill players. I mean, we're 3 deep at receiver now. We're 3 deep at tight end. We got Pat Ricard, the weapon. Justice Hill's playing great this year. We got the offensive player of the year favorite, Derrick Henry. And we got a quarterback who has total control at the line to be able to use those guys however he wants and change the play. So I think that we're up to this challenge, Alec.
Yeah, I want to point out some of the comments. First of all, John, if you need any help with Calais at the airport, I'll be right there. I love to shake that man's hand. And also Ravens Way popping in, say hello. I guess practice is over. And then
no, it was a game, and I'm guessing
okay.
he won 22-0. And Yuri was the defensive coordinator, for what I know. Yuri, if you're still there, too busy to do the show. He's probably drinking beers with his players. And what I'm going to ask Yuri again next week is, at 20 whatever years old he is, why isn't he playing? Why is he coaching? This is just a debacle, bro. It's a debacle. This young man's already an old man. But yeah, any other comments you want?
I want to bring up Jeremiah, honestly, because he says never nervous now except for on defense. I agree. I think that this offense, with all these weapons, will be able to get themselves in a position to, pick on something they find on this defense. I truly think that they should score 30 points every week. Like, at least the offense is too good. Lamar's too good. Henry's too good. Everybody's like, they're just playing too well. The biggest concern would be the offensive line, who I feel like had a step back last week. And it's funny, like when things are going all right, you might overlook things like Falele, and like I'm just still over here being like, I don't know if this is the is this really all we can do? Is this the best we can put out there at right guard?
Yeah,
Uh,
I've seen people on Twitter. It's mainly the stats guys, the charts guys, the advanced stats guys. Anytime somebody says something about the O line play, they're quick to bring up this one chart from this other chart that shows how great our offensive line has been. But Alec, I'm telling you, as a film guy, there are breakdowns. We're using Ricard a lot. We are chipping. We're helping out our tackles. The guys on the inside are getting beat, and Lamar is just a magician, bro. He is a magician, and he's getting us out of plays where we're potentially in trouble as well. There can be improvements on this offensive line just by if you just simply inserted Ben Cleveland in there. If you look at his tape, it's better than anything Falele has put out. I'll take Cleveland's worst game on tape versus Falele's best game on tape, and match you play for play and break it down play for play. But that aside, bro, like we're doing a good job negating that and just being able to distribute this ball to all our weapons and lean on Henry. I would like to see us lean on Henry just a little bit more. It's going to be tough because now we have the Bengals game on Thursday, Alec. So two games in 4 or 5 days or whatever it is. Might see a lot of Justice Hill in this game. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, good call. The back-to-back games is a consideration. I would also say, I think Hill, Key Mitchell, if he's available, but we'll see. He'll probably get ramped up. But I also think maybe that is how you get a decent amount of snaps for Aguilar. Like maybe he's not the odd man out. Maybe they are cycling everyone to try to get their snap share, low 70s for Bateman and Flowers instead of the higher 70s or 80s like they've been getting. Likely and Andrews had an unbelievable amount of snaps last week. Almost 75 plus for both of them on the field together for over 50% of snaps. Maybe they use a Kohler a little bit more or something. But yeah, I think snap management for some of these skill position players could be in consideration with the Thursday night game. And look at this guy, Yuri. Do you have a headset as head coach? What's going on? Do you have one of those laminated play sheets that you're covering your mouth with? What I need to know some more.
Sometimes it's best to ignore him, Alec. You just got to ignore him. So yeah, he's like I said, he's an old man. Hey, Alec, I want to get to this. Devon Key, their strong safety, first year starting. He's played in all 8 games. Hasn't started in all 8 games. He's playing because PJ Locke is hurt. He's highlighted on the screen because what I see is Patrick Surtain being somebody that you want to stay away from. So this could be a big game, I think, for Mark Andrews, who's really getting into the groove. If they're going to man up and challenge us like Cleveland did, go man-to-man across the board and put a lot of pressure on Jackson, try to run blitz Henry, then, a matchup that I'd be looking at if I'm Lamar Jackson at the line of scrimmage is this guy who's in his first season against Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I think of the two safeties, I'd rather pick on Key than Jones. I would say that Andrews, after starting off the season a little slow, is been picking up the pace of play, looking more and more like himself. Even if he's not getting a ton of targets, I think it's just more of a byproduct of this offense and the way the ball gets spread around. I don't think that he's being, beaten or taken away entirely. Maybe they're doubling him or something that's different, but I don't think that he's not able to get separation and things of that nature. So, yeah, I like that matchup. I also kind of like the matchup with Likely. I think that he and Andrews are really potentially a key to the game with their ability to block and pass catch. And, we'll kind of be able to match their very multiple defense and the way that they're able to move around with our skilled position players that can move around as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Likely Jaquan McMillan, the nickel cornerback for the Denver Broncos. Undersized, very Tavon Young-like. So if you're going to use him to match up on Likely or Andrews, however they roll that is a big height size advantage. Like McMillan's a quick guy, but Likely, has some route running chops himself, to the point where he can put a little move on you, give you a little indecision, and create plenty enough separation. It's not going to be great separation, but when you're 6'4" and the guy guarding you is 5'9", you don't need much separation if the throw is on time, if your hands are good. So, yeah, I like the tight ends on this matchup. Like for any of you guys betting out there, if you think Denver can hang with us and you think the Ravens are going to be have to throw the ball a good bit, I like Andrews and I like Likely in this matchup, Alec.
Man, the last couple of weeks, Andrews has been dirt cheap in the betting markets and maybe some good money. Uh, Underestimated. So definitely, take an eye, look at that, and see if 25 yards for Andrews is basically even money or not.
So I want to get to somebody else on this offense, and that's Rashad Bateman. Highlighted him because, first of all, the corner across from him, Riley Moss, young player. Is this his first year? This is his first year, right? Rookie. He was in this draft, right? Um,
Mm.
He's got a lot of speed, track star, really good college tape. I had him in the third round range, fourth round range. I thought he could go, and that's around where he went. But with the addition of Deontay Johnson this week and the huge drop by Bateman last week, I feel like this is an important game for Rashad Bateman personally. Like if you put yourself in Bateman's shoes for a second,
Yeah.
you had that big drop. They bring in Deontay Johnson. You're going to be on the team. You're signed, $5 million a year for 3 years, but you want to make up for that game last week. You want to prove to the coaches and to the fans that you're there, that you're their guy. And Riley Moss, for all his speed, he's not the biggest guy, and as far as physically imposing, and he's also like changed a direction I didn't think was great from him, and that's something obviously route running that Bateman has in his bag. So I want to talk about Rashad Bateman, and it would be great to see him just like have one of them 5 catches, 6 catches for 80, 90 yards and show the fans, show the team that, yeah, you brought in Deontay Johnson. Yeah, I had a crucial drop last week, but I'm here to stay. I'm here to contribute.
For sure. And actually, Riley Moss is a second-year player, and that makes sense to me. I was trying to think about it. Yeah, he was in last year's draft. But
I was confusing him with the other
I
guy, if you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. Because I did the same thing. That's why I was going through my head. But he was in the same draft class as Corey Trice. Anyways, nothing in common with those two corners. I want to go ahead and talk about Bateman. So Bateman, he's shown too much this last couple games to, I think, be excluded from the offense. Kind of going back to what Jeremiah is saying here. He had some good games. I think the team still trusts him. It was just a bad display, and he'll bounce back. I think, he's so real in his interviews. He kind of had that interview on the lounge, and I thought he was kind of just very genuine and straightforward. And then his interview after the game, he's like, people were like, is this a wake-up call? He's like, no, this is the NFL. Like, we expect this, like it's not a shocker to us in the locker room that, things like this can happen. So we just had to regroup and keep moving forward and kind of put it behind him. And I truly do believe that. I don't think I'm going to guess, I think he's becoming more and more comfortable in his own skin, so to speak, and his confidence, that I don't think he's like threatened by Deontay Johnson per se. I think he knows why they added him and can see what his role can be and how like that doesn't eat into his, production or his role. And like you said, he signed for a couple of years. He's here to stay. Like, we're good. I think the whole team still has full belief in Bateman. He's still part of the future plans. Deontay Johnson's just here to help as much as he can this year.
I was proud of Bateman for being accountable, being available to the media after that game, which is something I can't say about everybody on that defense and everybody who messed up on this team. I was proud to see Kyle Hamilton, by the way, at the podium this week. You almost got the feeling that Kyle was like, look, man, I was so mad after the game that I couldn't say anything I wanted to say. I was mad at myself, but let me get up to the podium this week and speak for this team and to speak for the secondary. So, good on Kyle for talking to the media today, but Bateman facing the music after that big drop. And, I think we're pretty much on the same page. Now, I will say in counterpoint that Deontay Johnson is going to eat into somebody's time. So like if you have him on the field, somebody else isn't going to be on the field, whether that's Ricard or not, whether it's Likely, whether it's Bateman, whether he's able to take some burden off of Flowers, as you mentioned earlier. Good point. One of the great things about Deontay Johnson is he can get off the line of scrimmage when he needs to. He can play both sides of the field. He can be dangerous in the slot. So Deontay Johnson has a full resume of doing just about any and everything. running any route from any spot on the field. So I do like that. Wanted to talk about also Derrick Henry's role in this game. I feel like overall, as we close it up on offense here, that this would be a great game to test this Denver defense. You see their stats down at the bottom. They're third in points are allowed. They are third in yards per game allowed. Pass yards game per allowed. Fourth. Pass yards per attempt, they're up there again. Like all their numbers are really good, especially against the pass. I feel like if you can get a lead on them and go up, that their run defense, despite playing a heavy 3-4, is something that this Ravens team is equipped to handle and can push that 4.0 yards per carry allowed up on this Broncos team.
Yeah, I agree. I really trust our ability to make mismatches. I think at the end of the day, it just becomes a little bit too much to bear. And just Henry being him, like that's the way that he can get going in the second level is historic, honestly. And I don't think there's any defense in the league that can really fully slow down what he offers. As long as our offensive line is as long as we're playing up to our capabilities, I don't really see Henry getting slowed down by this unit.
So here's something I'm going to offer. Anytime that they're not in the 3-4, so when they're in this defense that we're seeing now, they're nickel defense. I'm looking at up the middle. They're strong as far as their front four, but their linebackers tackling, like Cody Barton's a bad boy for real, but Justin Strnad, Riley Moss, McMillan's undersized. Like if they come out light, Alec, against any formation, that's when I'm getting Henry on the edges of this defense, making these linebackers chase and tackle, and making these DBs chase and tackle. So, if they're in the 3-4 and you want to expose the middle, which has been the softest spot for them out of their base 3-4, go for it. Run Henry up the middle when they're in a heavy defense because you got some really good edge setters out there in Browning and Cooper. But if they're going to play night, especially if like when Nick Benito's in the game there at the rush end, you got Benito, McMillan, and Riley Moss all on one side, or if Surtain's over there, that's when I'm tossing it to the edges and letting Derrick Henry eat. And I don't care if they get us for a tackle for a loss or a 1-yard gain. I'm going right back to it. I'm calling a different kind of play to get him on the edge and really trying to find something that works against this Denver defense because, I think they're undersized. When they put out their light group, they're undersized. Their linebackers don't stand out. Their strong safeties don't stand out. And their nickel backs, their corners don't stand out from a tackling perspective. They're great cover guys, but from a tackling perspective.
Yeah, I think you're right. This strikes me as more of a finesse defense than it is a super physical one.
Right. And, I'm going to bring J-Dub back out. J-Dub, it's great seeing you in here. We could go some 10 formation. We could go with Henry back there with 4 receivers and really spread these guys out and force them to go light. Force them to go light, get Henry the ball, and good luck tackling that monster when you're in your lightest defense. So, having Deontay Johnson out there and Aguilar, or if you want to leave one tight end out there with like Likely or Andrews, we could really throw the ball on you, make you go light, and then take advantage of that by running the ball down your throat. So, again, I love the multiplicity of this offense and how we can beat you different ways. And it's going to have to be that way against a Denver defense with so many moving parts. Like you see a lot of good players, not great players, but there's players that aren't on the screen that are going to contribute a lot of different formations. Vance Joseph's defense, very disciplined. So it's a no-name defense. It's an amoeba defense. And this offense, I think, is equipped to handle it. And I think Derrick Henry, why he's highlighted is because I could see him going off for 150 and being the first running back to truly gash this defense.
Love that. We'll love to see it.
All right, moving on. On the other side of the ball, there is a lot more issues, a lot more questions.
Oh, there's a slash.
For the first time, we have a slash on the screen. I don't know what's going on with Marcus Williams. Could he be back? Yeah. Could they continue with Eddie Jackson? Yeah. And then, of course, when Kyle Hamilton was in the slot or in the dime, they had Ardarius Washington back there at free safety with Eddie Jackson at strong safety. It was just a mess. When I first looked at it, I saw Ardarius on the field for Eddie Jackson, and I was thinking, okay, well, they're benching Marcus, but at least we have Ardarius out there. And then what happened when Kyle Hamilton moved back to safety? They didn't keep Ardarius on the field. Eddie Jackson was the guy that was playing 100% of the snaps. Then I went into, oh boy, here we go mode, Alec.
Yeah, dude, I don't really have much good to say about Eddie Jackson. You know, the silver lining, I guess, is that he was near the ball and could have had some interceptions. But honestly, dude, like the guy just seems a little clueless to me. Like, I just get the vibe that he doesn't really understand his role, other people around him's role, what he needs to be doing, and he just seems confused out there. And like, honestly, like a little bit of like a whiner, for lack of better words. Like, it just rubbed me the wrong way when he was like, he pushed off of me. You know, there was no push off whatsoever, dude. Like, you just like looked lost. You didn't know where the ball was, things of that nature. So, Eddie, I agree with Koku. Like, I don't want to. I really don't want to see him on the field at this point. Like, he's the backup in my mind. I'd rather see Ardarius out there. I'd rather see Williams out there. I mean, shoot, man. I'm this close to saying I'd rather see Braid out there. You know, like, I mean, we're getting to the point where I'm just not. I don't know, man, about this A. Jackson signing. You know, I thought it might be something, but it turns out it's kind of a big old nothing.
So, Alec, you know, on the show, I keep it positive for the most part, but honest and professional. My comments about Eddie Jackson off the when I'm not here on YouTube are pretty harsh. Okay, so I would just say I'm disappointed with the return that we've gotten from Eddie Jackson so far. I don't think that there's anything that you can say, okay, well, he's doing this well. Like if he was in the right spots and there wasn't confusion between him and whoever else uh, at that time, and we've seen it with multiple guys, be Eddie Jackson and Marlon, even Eddie Jackson and Wiggins, Eddie Jackson and the linebackers. It's there are a lot of communication breakdowns along the defense, but Eddie Jackson's been a part of many of them himself. So as much as I'll credit Zach Orr for moving pieces around and having the guts to like say he played Malik Harrison week 1, which I thought was a horrible decision. Like, what are you thinking, Zach Orr? But he fixed it the very next week. Then he started going to dime defense. Then he decided that wasn't a good idea because he needed Kyle Hamilton to play in the back end and not be the dime backer. So he switched that up again. Like Zach Orr, for all the issues that I have with him, isn't afraid to change things up. I hope Marcus Williams comes back on that field because he is a veteran. We have seen him play well recently as a Raven. But yeah, Eddie Jackson, man, I really don't have a lot of positives to say.
Yeah. Speaking of Orr, dude, I mean, he's literally my age. He he's figuring it out. You know, McDonald had the opportunity to at least call some plays in Michigan. You know, had a little bit of a test run. Or hasn't had that opportunity. He's learning on the fly. He's trying his best. I think it's really challenging what to do with Orr going forward. I believe that the Ravens have high hopes for him in the future. I wouldn't even be shocked if he's a possible head coach at one point, but he's barely ready to be a defensive coordinator right now. And that's not to say that he can't be one. It's just that, you know, it's early days for him, a lot of growing pains. But I do applaud, like you said, his ability to try new things and to keep iterating. He's definitely not stuck in his ways, and I think he'll figure it out. Like, I really do believe that. But what we're seeing right now is not the defense we're used to from years, you know, the last couple of years under McDonald. Not even just from the results in the field, but just the approach. It's definitely different.
I'm so frustrated because I mean it's too late in the season to have these breakdowns, and I've went from it's still early, it's only week 3, that's week 4. They should have this stuff cleaned up. When's it getting cleaned up? To now we're heading into week 9 and the communication is just as poor as it was week 1. And to me, like that's a reflection on the coach. There's no such thing as bad students, only a bad teacher type theory. You got veteran guys back there. They were 11 playing as one last year. It was 11 guys playing as one. And a lot of the same guys are there. Like I see people saying, well, we lost a lot of snaps from Queen and Darby and Clowney. Well, yeah, but the guys that we have in here are veteran guys. They're talented guys. There's night and day difference between us playing on one accord as a defense and guys looking at each other every week. Different guys. Yeah, Eddie Jackson's been a common theme, but different guys every week looking at each other like, I thought you were supposed to be there. Why didn't you pass this off? It's just very, very frustrating. And I want to say this. A lot of people are calling for Zach Orr to be replaced. Do I think the Ravens will do it? Absolutely not. It's just kind of like not how they do business. But I will point back to 2012 with Cam Cameron and Jim Caldwell. And to me, I've never coached at a high level. I've never got paid for coaching. It's all volunteer stuff. But when I look at what you have to do on offense compared to what you have to do on defense, if a defensive player can come in like Roquan did a couple of years ago and pick up the scheme and know his responsibilities, if he can come in and learn the terminology and lingo, then another guy can come in and call plays, or somebody on the staff can be promoted to call plays. Heck, Harbaugh could call plays. Anything to get a different voice in there, to get a different cadence play caller, because it's not working with Orr. Again, I don't think that'll happen, but I don't buy the argument that it can't be done. I think that somebody needs to get in here, start kicking some butt in practice, get these guys on the same page, and stop calling like a bunch of zero blitzes at the end of the game last week, changing up the play calls. Like, you don't have to bring in, oh, well, they can't learn a new system. You don't need a new system. I think the guy running this right now, it just doesn't look organized, and the play calls are head scratchingly bad sometimes.
Yeah, cadence is a big one. Jake Luke put it well. Like this team will be forever in prison from firing Cam Cameron midseason and winning a Super Bowl, right? Like it's like, oh, it was the the magic fix. So it definitely is something. But I agree, man. It's a tough move with DC. Let's see what Jeremiah said here. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Peeves is not a guy that I remembered fondly, right? Like when you think about previous defensive coordinators, he wasn't horrible by any means, but he was not a guy that again, I thought so super highly of. So part of me is not interested in that.
Okay, well, I'll put the counterpoint to you then before you talk.
Yeah.
Now, you did have Ed Reed and Ray Lewis, but his defense has never looked disorganized. I will say that.
Yeah. No, you're right. Dude, it's killing me. It's so killer that they're having so many issues because, yeah, you lost Queen snaps, but I'd argue Simpson's playing very, very close to that same level. You don't have the same level of splash plays, but you also, I think
more sound. He's playing more sound, but he's not shooting gaps and making a lot of aggressive plays. He's playing a very safe, good linebacker, Trent Simpson. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, with you. And then in Darby, he played really well above expectation, but I would take Wiggins or Humphrey every day of the week over him, and the level that they've been playing. The biggest question mark is Stone. And, the thing that's crazy is Stone, if you remember, actually did have a crazy amount of snaps. His snap count was quite high. He was a clear big contributor, but he wasn't out there all the time. But man, it's like night and day what Williams and Jackson have been doing back there this year.
All right, so let's stop complaining about the communication and the coaching here. Let's get into the players, the nuts and the bolts here. This Denver offense in a lot of ways runs through Javonte Williams. Now, his yards per carry is lower than the other two backs on the field. He catches a lot of passes out of the backfield, though. This is a Sean Payton offense with a rookie quarterback. So you look at the pressure that it puts on the defense as far as staying disciplined, the play action. Javonte Williams, the running back, is a big part of this. And, of course, with the Ravens defensive line beat up, it's going to be important to stop this running game and Javonte Williams out of the backfield as an extension of the running game catching passes.
Ben Powers' revenge game. Can't forget about that either. Trying to clear up some holes for Javonte. But to go to your point about Javonte, interesting back, has felt injury. His target share is pretty decent so far this year. 34 targets, 27 receptions. Like you mentioned, in this offense, heavily uses the running backs in the passing game. Jaleel McLaughlin's a guy who came on the scene last year and produced quite well and has been okay, I would say, in his limited spells of Javonte Williams. I think that it's a decent 1-2 punch. And I agree, to start off, take away that safety net from Bo Nix, right? Don't let Javonte Williams and McLaughlin beat you in the passing game or in the running game. If you're able to slow those two things down and he has to start going to his boundary wide receivers or his tight ends, is kind of a weak situation as well. I feel much, much better about our ability to move forward because I do think this offense is predicated on the running backs.
It is. Koku with a question, and I just want to address this real quick. Do you think Orr is kind of forcing the defense to run his specific calls and not allowing them to audible out of looks? If anything, I think it's the opposite, Koku. I think they're trying to do way too much on defense. They need to simplify things. The old KISS theory: keep it simple, stupid. Go out there, play a defense, play the same 5 or 6 defenses with maybe maybe a little wrinkle here or there, but I think they're trying to do too much on defense, and that's leading to pre-snap confusion, post-snap confusion. So yeah, I actually think it's the opposite. They need to simplify and dumb that thing down. Um, the other guy I have highlighted on the Broncos, Alex Forsyth. Now this is his 7th round pick out of from last year.
Yeah.
He has only made, I want to say this is his 3rd career start. Yes, 3 career starts. So their starting center, Wattenberg, is out. Alex Forsyth, he'll be asked to do a lot of double teaming with Matabike. Unfortunately for the Ravens, Travis Jones is not 100% healthy. If Travis Jones was a 100% healthy against Ben Powers and Forsyth, I would feel good about our getting pressure up the middle. But it's still a big game for a center with only 3 career starts and a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, and wasn't he like a tackle prospect or something? Like, does he have some like larger size and versatility? Am I remember that right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like a lot of them, that he played tackle in college.
Yeah. So definitely, because or maybe I mixed him up. Was he on the Seahawks at one point? Am I mixing this up, or
No, he was just on. I believe he was just on
okay.
the Broncos, unless it was a.
So maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was.
that's why I
He
was
played at
asking.
Oregon. He's 6'3", so I think he was a guard actually, not a tackle. But they moved him to center here.
Yeah. Well, hey, third start against a guy like Matabike, I would hope that we could generate something there and get some tackles for loss or some sacks. Um, oh, there we go. Thanks.
Yeah,
You know,
you thinking of
you're
Stone? You thinking of Stone Forsyth? Yeah, completely
look.
different player. This is Forsyth.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
Alex
hey,
Forsyth.
look, man, the letters are very similar. Different player, very similar letters. But
No,
yeah,
Stone's doing okay, and he's got more than 3 starts. This guy's
yeah.
brand
I
new,
was about
wet
to
behind
say,
the
I was
ear.
like, I thought he was good. Okay, so there you go. All right, never mind. Um, Appreciate that, Yuri. So yeah, I definitely think that you might be able to get something going there. One thing I don't really know is what kind of running game they have. If it's more of a zone, I think it's more zone, right? Or is it a power running
It's
game?
Sean Payton, so they run a lot of everything. It's going to be varied.
Okay.
It's very much like it's labeled Air Coryell defense, or offense, excuse me, but it can get very West Coasty at times. A lot of short
Yeah.
control passing games, like you saw with Breeze at the end of his career, and that's the feeling I'm getting with Bo Nix. Only 7 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. By the way, Alec, this team has forced the Denver Broncos has forced 12 turnovers, which is great, but they've also given the ball away 12 times, which is not great. So they are +0 in their plus minus ratio. They have lost 7 fumbles this year. So their quarterback has only thrown 5 interceptions, but they've lost 7 fumbles. It would be great to see somebody punch that ball out.
Yeah, it would be. Turnovers might be the best way for our defense to get off the field at this point. Not their inability to stop people on third down has been painful to say the least.
So building on Alex Forsyth, starting at center, Quinn Miners, I think he was a 2nd round pick, talented guard in his 2nd year. Those two, the double teams on Matabike, mentioned early, when you're getting paid what Matabike is getting paid, you have got to figure out how to defeat double teams and how to make your presence felt. Now, I don't think that this is a bad year for Matabike. I think he's made a lot of noise, especially when he's singled up. He is still a handful. You can see the burst. You can see the power is still there. The problem is he's catching a lot of attention, and he's allowed to catch up a lot of attention because with Travis Jones hobbled, there's really not another threat to push the pocket in this on this defense here. So Matabike, it would be great to see him be able to split Miners and Forsyth and get a sack and create some stuff. We saw him shoot the gaps in the run game last week, make a big play. He's going to have to play a buttload of snaps with all the other injuries on the defensive line. This is a huge game for Justin Matabike in every way.
I want to bring up Jeremiah's comment about Robinson too. He does have the side to slide inside a bit and maybe help. But But obviously, I don't think he's necessarily the player we want to have out there. I think he's much better on the edge, being
I
able to
mean,
set
yeah,
the
you're
edge.
talking passing downs, and that's fine. Like,
Yeah,
of course, we can go to rush packages with defensive line or edge players on the inside. I'm talking about first and second down
no, I
distance.
know.
And
Yeah.
if this team's going to grind away with us and double team, and especially the way that Roquan has not been able to get off blocks like in years past. Like Tavius Robinson is a tall, thin player. He can set a mean edge, but you're not going to confuse Tavius Robinson with Michael Pierce anytime soon. He will get moved off the spot if they do a
Yeah,
duo on him.
yeah, definitely. Very different body sizes and body types there. Um, where do we want to go next? I kind of want to talk about their receivers a bit. What do you think?
Yeah, go for it, man. Go for it.
Sutton's a guy that could be a problematic if lined up against Stevens, as you have it marked right now. Stevens' ability to know where the ball is and all that kind of stuff, with Sutton's ability to have kind of late hands and make acrobatic catches. I would say he's kind of he was George Pickens before George Pickens was on the in the league. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he has good body control and big target. I'm a little concerned about that matchup.
They're going to have to use him. And I thought it was interesting looking at his game log a couple of weeks ago. Sutton had 0 targets, 0 catches,
Yeah.
played a lot. So they like his usage has been a little up and down this year. He could be a guy with double digits targets, or he could be a guy that only has 3 or 4 targets. Like I said, had 0 targets a couple of weeks ago. But he is clear cut their number one receiver. And yeah, with Brandon Stevens not being the best catch point corner, that being his weakness, and Sutton being great at the catch point, that's definitely something I would expect Cortland Sutton to get those George Pickens type targets like you're talking about down the field.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a little bit of something to be concerned about.
And
Troy,
if I'm excuse me, Marcus Williams, Eddie Jackson, whoever's playing free safety back there, I'm probably taking a couple of steps over to that side this week and protecting against the deep ball. See if I can pick one off from Bo Nix.
yeah, I think he can be got. He It's been kind of conservative, like you said. The West Coast offense, kind of Drew Breesian, the way they're trying to run things. And I do think, I just don't think that these outside receivers, other than Sutton, are something I'm super concerned about at this point. Mims has been a bust, just like his brother. Shocker. Franklin, it's early days. Nix does have a connection with Franklin though from college, but I haven't really seen too much from him so far this season.
The last one I want to highlight before we get to the end of the show here is Lil Jordan Humphrey, big, dependable slot type target possession receiver against maybe Marlon Humphrey if he's back in the slot. Arthur Millette did not practice today, but Lil Jordan Humphrey kind of acts like a tight end. We saw him make plays with the Saints. A solid player to have there in the slot. We could have a Humphrey versus Humphrey.
I love that his name's actually Lil Jordan. That's kind of crazy. So, but yeah, I mean, if you look at it, his yards per target isn't super high at 6.6, but his catch percentage I think is pretty good, one of the better on the team. So I definitely think that he could. You put those two things together, and you're assuming he's running some shorter routes, kind of like you said, tight end.
He
role.
is. Yeah, he's a really good possession receiver, really strong hands. And somebody like a piece when we were struggling for a piece, when I saw him in New Orleans, I'm like, yeah, this guy is a really nice like fourth receiver type hybrid. He could step up and give you targets, mismatch some smaller slots. So yeah, Lil Jordan Humphrey, don't be surprised if he plays a little bit on the outside and places Troy Franklin. I saw that when they went to 12 personnel. They have a blocking tight end named Crawl. Adam Troutman is their receiving tight end. But, not a lot of weapons on this Denver offense and a rookie quarterback. This would be a great time to see this Ravens defense just show up finally and start to get organized and really have a good day at home.
Yeah, it'd be cool. Yeah, I mean, you look at these guys, and I think it's a worse receiving core than, honestly, than I feel Cleveland had.
Really, even without Cooper, huh?
I do think so, because I'm still a Tillman stan. Like everyone's like, oh, no one saw Tillman coming. I saw Tillman coming. I was worried about Tillman. Like I just thought he needed the opportunity. So I still like Tillman as a player. I think he might be a problem in our side for a couple more years to come. And I guess maybe I just like Elijah Moore. And also I'm thinking about, honestly, Njoku and how he's kind of come on over the last couple of years.
Very true.
he's more of a target than Troutman or Lil Jordan, in my opinion.
Yeah, we need to factor in the tight end. You have a good argument there. So here we are, final thoughts time, ended the show. Man, it's good to be home, and we're gonna have 2 home games in 4 days. To me, this was the trap game. Everybody talked about last week being the trap game. I didn't see that because it was a divisional opponent, and you know how Cleveland feels about us. You know how we feel about Cleveland. Um, I thought it was a game that maybe we thought we would win and be a little overconfident, but I didn't necessarily see it as a trap game going into a hostile environment. This, a home game against Denver with another game coming up in 4 days against Cincinnati. You cannot overlook this game and be looking at Thursday night with them bright purple jerseys coming. You've got
Yeah,
to focus on this game and get to 6-3, Alec.
you do, and I think you're right. If they had taken care of business against Cleveland, this could have been the trap game.
Right.
But because of the nature of what happened in Cleveland, I think it won't be a trap game. I'll also add, you know, you mentioned at the top of the show that you weren't loving this Cleveland game and you're trying to be like hyped up about it. I felt the same way when I saw that line at first at 8.5 or whatever it was. I was like, that's crazy. I'm not touching that. Like no way. A, it's a divisional game. B, just like if you look at the way they might match up and the way there's so much up in the air, about Winston. I saw someone say like he always gets you maybe 4 touchdowns, maybe 4 interceptions, maybe a mix of the two. But I was like, yeah, that describes him. Like he's gonna just throw the ball and hope for the best. And if we're having miscommunications like we were, easy enough for them to score some points. So definitely was a trap game. First time we've seen a really good defense in a while, or a defense that was physical and could compete at that kind of high level. We were being up on some defenses that weren't as good. So this is a trap game, as you're kind of mentioning. It still has all the assets of a trap game, other than the fact that we just got beaten or put in our place. This defense is nothing.
The biggest part of it really is we're
and
coming off
what we
an
didn't
awful
talk
loss.
about, but who was it on here? Jeremiah mentioned Nix is a pretty athletic little guy, right? So he's been rushing. He's the second leading rusher on their team. So I think. Yeah, contain him and contain rush lanes as well, and he might pick up first downs with his legs. So they have enough. I think they're a scrappy team, is how I'd put it. Their offense will be able to create something out of players that aren't necessarily the most talented in the world, and the defense is solid. So you can see a scenario where our offensive line is struggling, Lamar spiking the ball in frustration, he's on the ground or not able to create, not getting time in the pocket, gets frustrated, maybe stuffs some runs, and then you're behind the 8 ball because Cortland Sutton got a nice grab and Javonte did a nice little wheel route or something and touchdown.
Those things that you're touching on in general right there are why I think it's important in this game to start fast. Like if this was a shootout, like a Tampa Bay type game or a Cincinnati type game, I wouldn't be as hell bent on starting fast because we know it's going to be a shootout. If we don't score the first possession, they're up 7-0. Hey, we kind of expected to be in this position, but this Denver offense lacks explosiveness. You saw down at the bottom, Javonte Williams right there. His longest rush this year is 20 yards.
Wow.
They're not an explosive team. Cortland Sutton is a down the field receiver, so you'll see some of that. Troy Franklin can get behind you, so you'll see some of that, but he hasn't been productive. They don't have a lot of yak guys on this team, Alec. So for me, like if you get ahead of them and your offense comes out and you figure it out and it's 10-0 or 14-3, and the Broncos have the ball, they better score on that possession because this is not a high scoring team. This is not an explosive offense. They are kind of, for a lack of a better word, not to be disrespectful, but babying their starting quarterback who's a rookie. So this isn't a Jameis Winston air it out or a Joe Flacco air it out veteran backup who will just sling the ball all over the place, can get hot and really hurt you. This is a very methodical team that relies on its defense. So score early and get up early as like the not counterpoint, but the other scenario to which you're painting.
Agreed. I do think that an early lead in this game would pay dividends and really change the game script into something they might not be able to recover from. Yeah, I think, and kind of what you mentioned with the Cincinnati game coming up on Thursday, getting out of this game healthy. They're already on a stacked injury report is huge too. Like whatever you can do to hopefully manage that.
Yeah, it would be great to have a convincing win here coming into Thursday, coming out kind of healthy. See where Keaton Mitchell is in his recovery. Maybe he'll come back sooner than we thought. If he's haven't logged in full practices, he must be coming out of those practices feeling pretty good. Is how I'm thinking. You get out there, you have a full practice, and then another full practice. That means you recovered really well. Whether he's at 100%, which of course he probably won't be at 100% this year, but it might be, he might be gaining ground, getting closer to 100%. So, yeah, I'm excited about this game. I'm not nervous. I want us to play this game. I wish Sunday was here now. I want us to play well. The only thing that makes me nervous is this defensive line, and the Denver Broncos, running the ball well enough to suck those linebackers up to have to respect it and exposing the middle of the field. That's how this Denver Broncos team, for the most part, is going to have to get us. Yes, the Cortland Sutton explosive plays in the shot downfield will be taken. But as far as like maintaining drives, it's going to have to be. They're going to have to run the ball well enough to get the respect of the linebackers and hurt us over the middle of the field.
Hey, man, I think you wrapped it up well. Got not much more to say. I just hope that we get a nice win. I hope it's not Sunday yet. I could use a few more days personally, but I get it, man. I'm eager to see us get back in the win column, get this nasty taste out of our mouth.
So make sure you check out Alec, Peter, and Chris, One Winning Pod. They have their pod every Monday. It comes out on YouTube on Monday nights, Tuesday at the latest. They did an emergency pod, I guess, for the Deontay Johnson signing. Right? Yeah, red alert. So that should be out as soon as he gets out with me. I would like to thank Koku, John, Jeremiah, and Yuri even checking in from the coaches and probably having a nice victory drink out there in the chat. I would love to hear your comments for those watching the replay of this leading up to Sunday. But with that, I want to say thank you to my football family. Love my football family. Thanks for everybody watching. Alec, please say goodnight to the people.
Good night, everybody.